This is the Snowbiz Now Entertainment Network.
Pandemonium broke out consistently during the International Indian Film Academy Awards weekend 2008. This year, IIFA, as it is known, made its entry into Thailand's financial and entertainment hub, Bangkok, a modern city with historical traits taking IIFA to a new high. Thailand's Minister of Tourism and Sports delivered heartfelt words at the opening press conference, and for a television audience estimated at 600 million viewers on Star Plus.
Bangkok have been recognized as one of the Southeast Asia premier locations, drawing over 12 million visitors a year.
If you don't know Indian cinema's stars, let me put things in perspective for you. The royal family of Indian cinema is the Bachchan family, and in Hollywood terms, the fame of father Amitabh, son Abhishek, and daughter-in-law Aishwarya Rai is the same as if Robert Redford was Brad Pitt's father, with Angelina Jolie as his daughter-in-law.
Hi guys, we're at the biggest entertainment event in the world with International Indian Film Academy Award 2008, and this year Bangkok plays the host, and we're at Dusitani Hotel, Bangkok. And joining us we have Nicholas Snow for a special report. Let's see what he's got for us.
Thank you, Panita, and thank you, audience, for tuning into our fabulous Bangkok IIFA weekend special. The excitement level is just like through the roof. It is like so intense here that I turned blonde. The much-awaited Sarkar Raj premiered on day one of the IIFA weekend at major Cineplex, and Bangkok embraced the icons of Indian cinema, the Bachchans, who joined together in the film under the direction of Ram Gopal Verma. So, tell me, what do you think about Bollywood coming to Bangkok?
Fine, I feel very good.
Well, and how is the community feeling about this event?
Everyone's very excited. We have never had anything as big as this in the local community, and it's a great thing to happen between, for collaboration between India and Thailand. They're two great countries, and I obviously share the heritage of India, and we share the cultural differences.
Hosted by the multifaceted Karan Johar, the IIFA Fashion Extravaganza featured some of the most high-profile Indian designers, presented by Indian film stars as showstoppers. We had a great time, but our camera made it only as far as the fabulous green carpet. For people who are unfamiliar with Indian cinema's impact on the world, let's put things in perspective for you. The industry is moving full speed ahead.
Started about 9 years ago, the IIFA movement really represents a platform to promote Indian cinema across the world.
So I think because India's got large numbers, there's a market for everything.
During my exclusive interview with Mr. Bachchan, I learned something that may surprise you. Whatever you do, do not refer to the Indian film industry as Bollywood. I'm wondering, do you think that Hollywood is any sort of benchmark for Bollywood or vice versa? How do you think those industries impact each other?
Well, firstly, we don't like the word Bollywood. I'd rather refer to it as the Indian film industry.
Okay.
We feel that that's some kind of an ugly remark towards our institution.
Okay.
However, we appreciate the West. We appreciate the work that Hollywood does. They are magnificent makers. They have the technology. They know the craft much better than us. They have been pioneers. We get inspired from them and their work, and we're very grateful for that. But we want to compete. We have limited means. Our cinema is not that widely spread. It does not give us the kind of finances and the returns that Hollywood gets, and therefore we are limited in what we can do technically. But I do believe that we have the competence, we have the talent, and we have the desire to do better. I hope that we will improve. With the opening of the economy in India, I find a substantial leap towards betterment. With the access to everything that's happening in the rest of the world, via television, and we have over 200 channels of that in our country. I find that the creative people are now exposed to perhaps a better element of creativity coming in from the West and from other parts of the world, and therefore a great desire to be able to either better them or match them. This is a good temperament, and I believe that we should continue. Obviously, we're handicapped by the fact of language. We make films in our own language, and our language is Hindi and Gujarati, Marathi, Tamil, Kannada, Telugu, Malayalam, Bengali, Punjabi, Bihari. We have different languages, and we make the largest number of movies in the world. But obviously, there aren't so many regional language speakers in the rest of the world. English is obviously the language of the universe, and therefore you have greater exposure. But I think that gradually, with time, purely because of the demographics of our country, I do believe that there are a larger number of people who see our cinema than they do Hollywood. And I believe that that is 3.6 billion as compared to 3.2 billion.
I understand we're out of time, so there's a lot of more people seeing you than Hollywood stars.
Well, that's, as I said, it's purely because of demographics. 1/6 of the population of the world resides in India itself, so that's an indicator.
Well, it's so much of an honor to be with you today.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for your long-term support of IIFA.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Back to you in the studio. Perhaps the biggest Indian film star in the world and the biggest star at IIFA is Mr. Amitabh Bachchan, and we're honored to have the opportunity to speak with him today about his illustrious career. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you for having me.
Without giving away the plot of the new film Sakaraj, I was very impressed by a particular scene where you had a monologue in which your face was reflected in a photograph. So I know you know what I'm talking about. I'm curious, as an actor, how you would prepare for that type of scene that was technically complicated but also required quite a scope in terms of your range as an actor.
Right. I think the situation itself was one that was emotional. Having lived through the experience of what transpires in the film, it was a kind of a culmination, a catharsis of what this character has been through, and now what he faces. He faces someone that is very close to him, and I think that in moments like this, it was the director's concept that the individual or the person that he is addressing we also be a part of that moment, because the sequence is indeed dealing with this character and his emotion with regard to the character that he is facing now. It would have been, I think, a little impersonal and perhaps too film technology guided had they just done a simple close-up, which would have been the norm in certain circumstances. But I think that the fact that he used the reflection and he kept most of the reflection out of focus was indeed a challenge to me as an actor, to be able to hold that sequence all in one shot, which is a fairly long monologue, which has various graphs of emotion and confession. I look upon it as a challenge as an actor to do it. I'm happy that that somebody from the media is noticing it, because generally these very subtle points are overlooked, and preparing for that moment is, as I said, it's a very difficult thing to answer. Either you can have your own personal technology of or your own training of how you want to deal with sequences like this, or you just go by feeling at the moment. I'm not a trained actor, so I really don't know what kind of training other actors go through to prepare for a scene of this magnitude. But I guess that I would live with that moment, perhaps just half an hour before the scene, and really concentrate on getting my lines right during that half an hour. And then once I have the lines in my mind, then I allow my body to just react the way it does once I hear that the camera is on. It's something that I've never been able to explain, what happens to an actor within those few seconds after the clap goes out of the frame and the director shouts action.
Do you recall how many takes you did in that scene?
That's a single take.
A single take.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Is it true that you've done almost 200 movies?
Close to them, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that when you first tried to get into the film business that you were limited because of your darker complexion.
Right.
Do you believe that that is specifically tied to racism, and has that just the type of roles that were available?
No, it's got nothing to do with that at all. What was a little disadvantageous to me when I wanted to enter the film was my height, because I was considered to be too tall for the leading ladies that were presently in vogue at that time. But that is all.
And a letter from Mrs. Indira Gandhi sort of opened doors from you, is that correct?
No, that is incorrect.
That's not correct.
I still haven't seen that letter, and neither has anyone else.
Okay, that's good to know. We'll clean that up. We should tell the Internet Movie Database.
Yeah, okay.
Now, your family is quite the film dynasty now, especially with the wonderful marriage of your son. The world looked with great awe at the festivities. As you look back on the big wedding, do you have any particular moments that stand out for you?
Yeah, any wedding in the family, particularly if it's your own son or your own daughter, is very eventful. We're very honored. We're very excited that members of the family get together. It was a moment of a bit of distress for us, because my mother was lying in a coma in hospital, and to continuously shifting emotions by being by her bedside throughout the day, and then in the evening come and get into a celebratory mood because your son is getting married is a difficult emotion. Both needed the kind of attention that is required of a son. As a son to my mother, it is my duty and my prerogative and my absolute right, the way that I've been brought up and in the way that tradition and Indian temperament is, that we invite our parents to come and live with us the moment we stand up on our feet. I believe that I have done that both for my parents, my father and my mother. It's one of our greatest honors in our tradition to do that. We live in joint families. Our parents live with us. We look after them, and we try and give them all the benefits and the comforts that life can give them. I feel very honored that I was able to look after my parents, and I hope I was able to look after them to the best of my abilities. But life is life, and you can't do anything about age. I lost my father while he was with me, and tried to do the best I could to keep him as comfortable as possible during his last years. My mother too was with me in the same house till such time as it became necessary to hospitalize her. My father was a little adamant. He, after several visits to the hospital, he refused during his last days to go back into hospital, and so I built an ICU, an intensive care unit in the house, so all the proper medical facilities could be provided to him, and I kept doctors and nurses. I tried to do that for my mother as well, but she was suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia, and therefore was unable to have entire control over her mind and her body. It became necessary for us to remove her to a hospital. But we were there throughout the day, morning and evening. The day I used to work, but go and be with her in the morning, go and be with her at night. But when the marriage came up, marriage is also an important event in the family. Two people have decided to get together. So shifting your emotions, as I said, by being by her mother's bedside, who has been non-communicable. She's not talking, she's not seeing, she's not hearing anything. She's just breathing. It's very difficult for a son, or indeed for any family, to see a senior member of the family in this condition. So I was told by the doctors that even though patients do get into a coma, hearing is the last faculty that they lose, and therefore keep talking to her. She may not react, or she may not give you any indication that she's hearing you, but indeed they do. So I used to go and just talk to a body that was lying there, that was breathing, and tell her what was happening. I don't know whether it registered or not. It's very...
I think Bollywood seems to be a term that has come derivated from aping Hollywood, and I think people who are part of progressive Indian cinema think that it is not something we want to be called as.
Hello. Yeah.
So yeah, we prefer to be called the Indian film industry. I think it's a name that truly signifies what we are. We are the Indian film industry, and we are not aping anybody here. So it's the Indian film industry for us.
I'd just like to reinforce what Sabbas was talking about earlier. Bollywood does, in a way, represent certain kinds of films that were made, and the point that he was trying to make is there's a lot more different kinds of stuff coming out which deserves a lot more serious attention. When you say Bollywood itself, I know it's become a brand worldwide, but it also is derogatory to the extent where you don't take our movies seriously. So the point being, it's just not all song and dance and just pure entertainment. We want to be put forth as serious filmmakers who are capable of competing on the world stage with the best of Hollywood, for that matter. And the perception when you just say Bollywood, even though, yeah, there are a few Bolly things in our industry, but overlooking that, but that's in any industry. But the perception, we want people to perceive our industry as a more serious industry, making high-quality films for a worldwide audience.
I just wanted to add that my international experience is fairly new, and I'll do what I can to educate the American public about the joy of what you're doing. Thank you.
Mr. Supern Varma is the director of Asset Factory. They're in the middle of production as the IIFA Awards go on. They've been in an actual closed-down Asset Factory for about 20 days, and I guess they have about another month or so, at least, in the shoot. Congratulations on the film. For our television audience just learning about Asset Factory, tell me what you can share about the film.
For one, it's an actual set that we are on. It's not a real Asset Factory, and we spent over a month building it and detailing it. And as far as the film goes, it's basically a thriller where a whole bunch of people are trapped together under very interesting circumstances, and they end up being in a lot of bizarre situations and try to come out of it. And that's just one of the tracks running in the story. There are two other tracks running parallelly, side by side. So in terms of, when we see conventional thrillers, this one kind of keeps breaking the mold in terms of twisting the screenplay around. At the same time, each narrative enhances the character and gives the audience an insight into him to kind of predict the next move or try and predict the next move. So it's a cryptic reply, but then I can't reveal a bit too much about the film, sir.
Sure, I understand. For our international audience that's just learning about the world of Indian film and Indian cinema, would you tell me a little bit about the stars in the movie?
Sure.
And how you assembled the cast and why it might, if it is, be a dream cast?
Well, when we started writing this film, we kind of, the minute you start writing the film, you start seeing certain actors in your head, or you start visualizing them. And as far as the actors go, Fardeen I acted also in my previous movie which I directed, Ek Khiladi Ek Hasina. So we are friends from way back, and for me I needed him to be in this film because for me somewhere I see him in a very Alan Dillon mode, who kind of does these noir movies. And as we proceeded ahead, Danny Donzoppa is a legend. He's been in the industry for 40 years. He's one of the coolest guys you'll meet. I mean, he was a villain for the longest time. We have seen him being thrashed by every hero under the sun. And then he decided to go back, take a break, and now he's back again in a way where he's playing all these very interesting characters. So that's Danny. Aftab is again one of our youth superstars in India, and his facet that he has is that somewhere there's a vulnerability to his face. At the same time, his acting lends itself to a bit, which is something that's edgy. Dino, who's one of the other actors in the film, is again a star in his own right. And the best thing about Dino is that he, as a personality, he's very light and flip, but he can suddenly just shift focus into being something totally different, and that is exactly the character that he's playing. Manoj is one of the best actors that we have in India. I mean, he made his debut with not debut, actually he hit the big time with Satya, where he played the role of Bhiku Matre. And working with him is like working with a powerhouse of talent. I mean, when he's in the frame, everybody else ends up pushing themselves to the max so that, you know, nobody's overshadowed. But the best part is that, you know, nobody's insecure in this whole unit. I mean, each actor kind of, you know, lends itself or pushes himself to help the other with something else or make the scene rise. It's end of the day all about the scene. It's not about one individual performance or one individual, which is something which is rare, and I'm glad it's kind of worked out in this in this whole process.
One final question. I was sort of trapped in America most of my life, and I'm grateful for my international experience in recent years. And as I discover with delight the world of Indian cinema, I personally believe that it kicks Hollywood's butt. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Here's the thing. I mean, Hollywood is a different genre and a different beast altogether. And I'll just kind of sidestep this question for a second and come back to it. When you asked about Indian cinema and, you know, the connotations it has. See, Indian cinema, when we just say Bollywood, besides being derogatory or a second cousin of Hollywood, which was referred to ages ago, it also limits Indian cinema. Indian cinema is not just Hindi cinema. Indian cinema is Tamil, Malayalam, Telugu, Marathi, Assamese. I mean, we have 26 different languages. You know, so, and each one makes cinema also. So that is Indian cinema. It is not just Hindi cinema. One. And now when it comes to kicking Hollywood's butt, I mean, the fact is this, that we have our own, you know, unique process of making films that is very, very indigenous. I mean, we work in chaos and we thrive in it. There is a structure coming in because of corporate money coming in, corporates coming in. So there's a process in place now which we are following. But at the same time, Indian cinema is where independent cinema lives and thrives, and it's mainstream cinema. I mean, a Steven Soderbergh makes one, you know, he has to make a Ocean's 11 to make a Solaris. Out here, Steven Soderbergh would make 10 Solarises and 10 Ocean's 11, and they would all be independent cinema. And that is the magic of Indian cinema. I mean, you have the freedom to do what you want and make what you want as long as you get the backing to make it. It is not ruled by, say, 5 big players. You've got hundreds, and you have the option. And today with multiplexes coming in, you know, the audience has got bigger, the money is much more, so that, you know, it has much more scope. Like, you can make a small film and still get its audience, which we didn't have before, say 7 years down the line. And the last 7 years has been radical change. So suddenly, you know, you have, I mean, India per se, 65% is village, or 35% is cities. So you have two different mindsets altogether. Plus, India as a country is lots of states brought together under one country. We used to be lots of states when we had kings once upon a time before the British came out here. They brought it together to kind of rule it easily, right? So still you have these cultural differences, and yet we are one. So that's where, I mean, you know, our whole magic comes from, which I don't think any other country in the world has that.
So in almost 30 languages, with hundreds of players, the Indian film industry is coming to the world here in the form of IIFA, and we thank you for taking the time to speak with us and enlighten me and my audience about what you're doing, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm here with one of the stars of Acid Factory, Mr. Aftab. Would you pronounce your last name for me?
It's already been mispronounced, so I want to set the record straight. Shivdasani.
Shivdasani, Aftab Shivdasani. I got it right. So tell me, for the audience that is just newly learning about Indian cinema, what are some of the roles you are most known for?
Well, thankfully in my gamut of things, I have quite a few roles that I've excelled in, but mostly they remember me for comedy, which is fortunate or unfortunate for me. But yeah, a couple of my comedy films worked, so I guess they have that so-called image. But I think Acid Factory will do the trick. It's a very intense film. It's a very grey film, and I think it'll do the trick.
And how did you come to be cast in the project?
Well, me and Mr. Gupta, which is a producer, we have been talking for a very long time to do some work together. I did a cameo for his last production called 10 Kahaniyan, which means 10 stories. And we just get along really well. We're very good socially, and we thought we should convert that into a professional equation, and here I am with Acid Factory.
Now, one of the things I'm learning at this event as a journalist is the misperceptions about the Indian film industry, stereotyped as Bollywood, and I'm wondering if you could speak to your passion about Indian cinema and what you think sets it apart and makes it unique.
You know, I do believe you were the gentleman who asked that question.
Yes.
Right. Yes, there is a large misconception in terms of the way people perceive our film industry and cinema. They do believe that we copy a lot of work from Hollywood. We do respect Hollywood, that's for sure. But I think the only thing that really ticks us off is the word Bollywood. It kind of gives you a feeling that there's an imitation going on of Hollywood. But Indian cinema by far is content based. It has a lot to offer in terms of culture, in terms of talent, in terms of acting, in terms of diversities. I think there's a lot more than just aping Hollywood, which is why I think that's one thing that really ticks us off about the word Bollywood, so to speak. Otherwise, we're more comfortable with using the word Indian film industry.
I guess I just have a final question. What would you say to someone in our audience that has a dream of being in the entertainment industry to encourage them or perhaps inspire them?
I think to be part of cinema especially has to come from within. It's not just, there are a lot of people who want to be actors, who want to be celebrities for the sake of fame and fortune. But there are a lot of other people out there who want to do it purely for the passion of cinema and acting. And I think that's more important, because fame, fortune is an up and down graph. It's there, it's not there tomorrow. But the passion that you have inside you, that is the reason for the real happiness that you carry forth when you leave work and when you go back home. Fine, you have money, you have a great house, you have a great car. But when you go back home and you're happy about something you've done and achieved or accomplished in a day, is what gives you the real happiness. So I think all the people who aspire to become actors or celebrities, I think they should, it should definitely come from within. They should pursue the passion, they should pursue their creativity and join this industry for the right cause, not for the wrong cause.
Well, thank you, Aftab, for taking the time to speak with us. Thank you, television viewers, for staying tuned here at the IIFA Awards.
This is the Snowbiz Now Entertainment Network.